So here we go. We're ready. I'm going to start seated this evening for our core class. Only needing one prop, and that being the block. I can move it out later. Very, very professional. Just allow myself to ease into this. We're actually going to start off with some breath work. So you want to sit comfortably. For me, crossing the ankles is that position, but whatever works for you. Sorry, bringing the heels in towards the groin is the comfortable position for me. You could even sit on the knees and rest on your heels. Not a problem. You can use the prop anyway, that feels good as well. I'll try and get the pelvis into that neutral position so we get the lifted spine and a nice freeness around the diaphragm, particularly, and the shoulders relaxing back. Get a bit of a wobbly head so that it feels nice and loose and relaxed as well. And then for me, I like to close my eyes. You don't have to do that, but I find that more inclusive for me in terms of the experience of a breathing pattern. Because we're going to be here for a few minutes, I'm going to actually hold that elbow with the opposite hand. So it's the right hand coming in front of the face. Index finger, middle finger on the forehead, and then just using the thumb to block underneath the right nostril. So immediately breathing into the left side and out of the left side a few times, and notice that the breath slows down. Because I can only get half as much in. Now I'm going to start the alternate breathing. Breathe in through the left. Diaphragm expands, ribs expand. And I'm going to close the left nostril and exhale out through the right. So just using the inside of that ring finger to close the nostril off, taking the breath back in through the right. Closing off the right nostril with the bottom of the thumb, and exhaling out through the left. We're going to continue for a couple of minutes, just changing from side to side. I'm going to take the final breath in through the left. and then release. And into hands, onto the collarbones, elbows together. Drawing the breath in, we lift the elbows up. Roll the shoulders back. Take the elbows as far behind us as we can. Bring the elbows into the ribs and then across the chest to lift up. So little angel wings, rotating round just a few times. And noticing the quality of the movement in the shoulder. Is that smooth or is it a little bit clunky? Does it feel like we've got some nice grease joints in there or a bag of iron filings? How do the muscles feel? Are they loose, tight, even in terms of their texture, or are they different from side to side? We'll let the hands come out wide. And then we'll take a surface stretch. Our left arm across. I'll walk the right arm underneath. Just draw the shoulder around a little bit. We'll open up and then cross over the opposite way. It's nice and simple. Just mirror side. We try to keep the shoulder down rather than riding it up. So always think about the distance between your ear and your shoulder if you can. And then we're going to release. Going to take the arms out and up slowly towards the sky. And take my first twist as I rotate towards the left, letting the hands come down as I exhale. And then inhaling up. And rotating across to the opposite side. And inhaling up. And across again. So a few more times. This time we let the hands come out wide. Walk the fingers out towards the left. And we're going to take the arm up. Bring the arm towards the ear and then bow down with that bottom elbow towards the ground. And see if we can press the right, which is the opposite knee, down towards the floor a little bit more. And then lift as we come back up. Walk the hand out to the opposite side. Lift up. Arm and ear connect. Bow down through a bent elbow on the bottom. Lifting back up. Again, we'll do that a couple of times to each side. And noticing whether you find this easier to work with one side to the other, even if it's just the breath, it becomes a little easier. And we're going to lengthen the legs out. And they've had a few minutes there, so just give them a little rock round, a little pump, get some blood back in. Going to come down onto the floor and use the block behind the back of the head. And knees high, chin towards the chest. Use your hands for the support along with the engagement of your abdominals. And we're going to take a little breath from there. So we'll draw both knees in towards the body, hands on top of the knees, and again make some nice little hip circles. And just get some idea of how the hips are feeling. And just judging whether you've got circles or rectangles in your hips this evening. See if we can reverse that up. So exhaling away, taking them wide, inhaling back in. a little lift of the tailbone, a small abdominal crunch. And bringing the feet back down to the floor, take the arms wide, crucifix. Let the legs roll down gently towards the right, to the left, shoulders on the ground. Now I'm going to try to gently squeeze the thighs together just a little and try to draw the bottom knee as close to the floor as we can. So I'm going to put a little bit of extra oomph into the twist, and then having been there for a few breaths, I'm going to flex both feet and just engage the leg muscles a little more, particularly around the hips on that bottom leg. And then we'll bring that back up as we relax a little bit. We're going to cross to the opposite side. Once we're down, I'm going to squeeze the thighs together a little bit. Draw the bottom leg down so we can encourage the top leg to follow. Try and keep the shoulders on the ground. And then one more breath. And then start to flex both feet. Feel the texture of the muscles in the bottom leg change against the ground. It will have happened in the top leg as well, just not quite so noticeable. You might find the intensity of the stretch increases a little bit, and you have to work a little more on keeping that breath smooth. And then we'll lift up and we'll bring the feet back. We're going to take a figure four, so taking the left leg towards the sky, turning the toes out, bending the knee, and placing the ankle to the outside of the thigh. As that left knee travels forward to keep the foot flexed on that leg and draw the right knee in. One hand through the center, one hand around the outside of the right leg, looking for a shin or a back of the thigh. So keep the shoulders relaxed and the neck long. Again, looking to relax the tailbone down towards the floor. Even though the legs are doing quite a bit of work, so if you're a bit stiff in the old hip joints or the hamstrings or the outer thigh or in the inner groin, this might feel a bit of a challenge. If you've had a stretch already today, maybe this is going to feel wonderful. So depending on where you are, state of play, it's going to feel different in each body. And release, untangle, and then from that leg back up, bring the foot down. We'll do the same to the opposite side. So we'll take the leg up, rotate out, bend the knee, allow ourselves to flex the foot. You are actually trying to move the right knee forwards. Left leg comes in, and we take hold of whatever we can hold of. As long as it's part of your body, it's allowed. And then we'll release. And bring that leg up towards the sky, give it a little shake out. Now, as the feet come together, close and towards your bottom, allow yourself to take your left leg up, cross the leg over, squeeze the thighs together. And as you lift your right foot away from the floor, see if you can slide the left foot underneath the back of your calf. As you do that, with the knees above your hips, take the hands out wide, and we'll mirror that with the left arm and right arm over the top, bending at the elbows. Bring the palms together and then draw the elbows towards the knees and the shoulders down to the floor. Hands just resting in right on the schnauzer. How about that for a description? Now, keeping the belly drawn in and lower back to the floor, we are indeed in supine eagle. Now, if you're not able to get the feet to engage completely, wrapping the foot around, don't worry, not all of us can. I can do it comfortably on this side, and it is more of a challenge on the other side. We'll release and untangle. Bring the feet to the floor and give the legs a little bit of a shake out. We'll take the right leg up, cross that over, and see if we can bring the foot underneath. Ooh, so close. And then right arm up, left arm over the top. Under the elbows, draw the elbows towards the thighs. Hands in front of the face. Roll the shoulders back. You can feel quite strong in the shoulders, chest area, and indeed possibly in the legs. Now squeezing the thighs together just a little bit. We're not relying solely on the foot to bind round. I'm trying to get the knees pretty much over the top of the hips. We'll release everything out. Untangle the legs, take the feet directly up towards the sky and point the toes, get a long flat back. Spread the toes out a little bit, squeeze the thighs gently together. Last breath, we'll bend the knees back in towards the body, roll onto our right side, use hands to press down into the floor, sweep ourselves back up onto all fours to the front of the mat. So come round, we'll lift up. I'm just going to use my toes to move the block out to the side. And then I've got hands on the shoulders, knees underneath hips, moving straight into cat-cow. Just rolling the shoulders back. Slowly letting myself peel the spine up towards the sky. Moving with your own breath. So remembering the speed that we obtained when we were alternating the breath. Can indeed see if we can slow the breath down to mirror that rhythm. So come back into a neutral position and let myself maraud from side to side. So kind of working into the shoulders a little bit and the hips, just gently rocking out from side to side, real slow motion move. And letting that kind of flow through the neck. A slowly running stream. And we'll come back into the center. Now we're going to slowly turn the hips out towards the right side, drop the right hip and shoulder towards each other. So I look down the side of the right side of my body, shortening the distance of the ribs to hip on that side. I come back into the center, and I'll do the same to the opposite side. So just a swish of the tail gently from side to side, and I'll look round. Come back into the center. For some reason, this has a big impact in my body. It's not at the time I'm doing it, but I always feel it the following day. And bear in mind, I do quite a lot of twists and side bends during the course of any given day. That is somewhat of a surprise. So there's definitely something about this movement that it imprints into my body and stays there for a while, more than other poses. Just take that to the final two sides. And then to celebrate having succeeded with that, I shall take the knees wide and the toes together and sit back onto my heels for child's pose. I'm going to walk the fingers out a little bit and take the onto the fingertips, the elbows away from the ground, and I can just let the head hover a fraction from the floor. And draw the belly in and see if I can actually think about sending the tailbone towards the back of the mat and expand my shoulders wide and maybe just turn the armpits down towards the floor a little bit. Opening the deltoids out a little as I turn the arms in into an internal rotation. And I'm going to follow this up by taking a side bend to the right. So just walking the fingers out. Settling the spine. Again, just keeping on fingertips, the head fractioning from the floor. Letting the body and the ribs rest into this thigh. I'll walk through to the opposite side. And come back into the center. I'm going to lift up a little higher to look towards the hands and take this into a little bit of a twist. The left hand is coming underneath, the ear and shoulder come to the floor. I'm going to walk the right hand over towards the opposite side of the mat, trying to keep the elbows straight, opening up the chest to look towards the sky a little bit. So very deep rotation through. Can certainly feel that in the lower part of the diaphragm. There's muscles around that area. On the bottom side are definitely letting me know I'm in a twist. Interestingly, not so much the spine, it's more of a muscular reaction. Walk the hand back into the center and then out to the side, lift up. Take a breath, smile on your face as you realize you have the other side to play with. Another opportunity to get deep into a pose. We'll hand over when you feel ready. Breathe. One last breath. Roll the hands back. Let ourselves lift. We'll come forwards. Put the toes underneath, about hip distance apart. Lift the knees away from the floor and move into down dog. So the feet want to be a hip distance apart. Once we arrive, and heels hiding behind the ankles, we're going to lift the hips up. Make sure the hands are flat to the floor. Take a scissor dog here. So we're going to take the right leg high. And then I'm going to deliberately open the hip out. And allow myself to bend the knee. Bring the heel in towards the butt. Lift the knee a little higher, come up onto the tippy toes. And we're going to extend the leg out, spread the toes out a little bit. Square the hips, and ease the foot back down to the floor. Starting position, lifting the left leg. I take it high through a long leg, and then I open the hip as much as I can. I bend the knee, flex the foot, lift the knee as high as I can, come up onto the tiptoes, really stretch it up towards the sky. Extend the leg back out, straight as you can, spread the toes, square the hips, and bring the foot down. As you arrive, we'll take the feet out as wide as the mat. And I'm into the almost Snoopy down dog position. The hands just far enough to get heels to touch the floor with straight legs. And then we take the left hand out towards the outer edge of the right ankle. and twist underneath the body. And we'll release there. Hand plants, hips square up again. Take it over to the opposite side. Rotate the body round and under. So try and lift the hips up high. And then slowly back. So from there, bring the hands gently back into the front of the mat, with the feet back into what we call standard place. Take a little breath, and we'll walk the toes up onto tiptoes, and then take those tiny little steps as we do baby steps into the front of the mat. So coming up into a bit of a high pike, working into the shoulders and the wrists, and the feet get a little flatter to the floor. And we see how close we can walk in to the front of the mat. We waddle where we need to waddle. Take a little breath from here and hang in your down dog. Let yourself press the hips up and draw the belly in. Press the feet down evenly into the floor. Let the back of your legs naturally open up. Let the head hang. Shoulders out wide and away from the ears. We'll take a little breath from here, and hands onto the hips, soften the knees a little, and let ourselves lift up. Take a deep breath in, and elevate the hands towards the sky. Bring them in towards your heart. Exhale back down to the floor. Now, to arrive, we're going to take the right foot into a deep lunge. Just check that the front knee is over the ankle. Going to be on the tippy toes. Press out through the heels of that back leg. Trying to drop the hip down to get a nice line between the heel, the hip, and the shoulder. To allow that to happen, you might need to draw the belly in a little bit. The thigh, in my case, is actually pressing into the side of my body a little bit. And drop the right hand down to the floor and take it into a twist. Left hand lifts. Now, I still want to keep the hips as square as I can to the ground. I'll bring the hand back down to the floor. Place that hand down. And then see if I can carefully take the lift into the opposite side, which is a bit more of a challenge. A, to move, and A, to turn into, and B, to breathe. And C, it would appear to speak. We'll just take that to the right again, pressing down, left arm lifts, and comes down to the floor. Inhale, right hand. Back down to the floor. Left for the third time. And down. And back to the floor. Now we're going to take a little breath from there, drop the back knee down onto the floor, untuck the toes, lift the hands up towards the sky, take it into a little bit of a back bend. So we're going to lift up through the spine, let the arms rest back, and then drop them out to the side. And the hands back down to the floor. Going to lift the back knee, drop the heel in for warrior two. Hands alongside the body. Like that. Right hand forwards and lift ourselves up. We'll take the hands high, rotate towards the front mat, lengthen out, hands to the floor. Going to spin the back heel, take the fingers forwards and lift into warrior three. Now, if you want to, you can keep the fingers on the floor. You're going to try and keep the hips square to the ground and press out through a long leg. If you wish to, see if you can lift the hands away from the floor. And then bring the hands gently back down to the ground. And bring the hands back in line with the toes. You'll still be in that nice long lunge, so you might need to wiggle your back foot out like I am. And you're going to drop the back knee down to the floor, press the right hand into the ground, draw the heel of the back leg in towards your bottom, take the left hand forwards, rotate your body, spot your foot, bring the heel in towards you, open your chest, keep the knee in towards the torso, but we'll want to pop out on that front leg to the side, so you keep it drawn in. Release, bring the hands back down to the floor, feet back to the floor, take a little breath, and step into that forward fold. Now, one leg's going to feel very different to the other, and it would be nice of us to even it back up. So we'll bring the hands onto the hips, let ourselves lift the soft knees, flat backs. So elevate the hands to the sky again as we breathe in. Hands into the heart. And exhale down to the floor. We'll take the left foot back, wiggle the foot beyond the fingertips, relax the shoulders, knee over ankle, foot pointing forwards. So we're looking at alignment cues, hips, chest, shoulders, heels, all following front to back of the mat. We'll place the left hand on the ground and take the right hand to the twist on the inhale. Hand comes back down, exhale, cross over the opposite side. Okay, you might find this easier on one side than the other to do the jaw twists. And drop the back knee, untuck the toes, take the hands forwards, open up into a Mooney Crescent. Let the hands come out wide, hands down to the floor, toe on the back foot, straighten the leg, drop the heel into your warrior two, hands alongside. Left arm opens up into the cartwheel. Hands come high as we breathe in, we rotate. Lengthen, keep the hands aligned with the torso for the last moment. Fingers come to the floor. We spin the back heel up towards the ground. Fingers come forward. We take the little spring into the front of the mat. And again, you decide. So the first thing you want to decide on is how stable do these hips feel and how flat does this back feel across the back of the hips. How well is your leg lengthening out down the line of the mat? Are your toes pointing to the floor? So if you've got all those things and you want to lift, you can do. Hands gently back down to the floor. Back leg comes back, fingers line up. Wriggle the back foot out, knee down to the floor. Allow yourself to lift the heel towards the buttock. Right arm comes up. We take the twist, gather the foot, draw it in, squeeze the front knee in as we open the chest. I know it feels like a much bigger stretch on this side than it did on the other. A whole different body. And we'll release. Allow the hands to come down. Fingertips, take a breath. Step it in gently. Hold down deep. One more breath. And soften the knees, hands onto the hips. We'll let ourselves lift very gently. Shake it all out. I'm going to step about halfway down the mat. And indeed, some people like to stand on the flat floor rather than the mat. I'm going to try and take it on the mat this evening, partly because my laminate floor, when the room gets humid as it is this evening, gets a little bit slippy. So that's worse than being on the rubber mat, which has its own issues with stability. The floor is more stable. This is less so. That's more slippy, it's more grippy. I'm going to go for grip this evening. And see where we get to. This could be interesting. So normally we'd face the front of the mat, but it's a little bit easier if I look out to the side in terms of finding a focus point that doesn't move. And bring the feet together, hands in towards the heart. Now we practiced a supine eagle earlier on. This time we did standing version. So you're going to soften the knees gently. Make a little bit of a gap between the ankle bones. Now, first stage, we bring the knees over the hips. Sorry, knees over the toes. Then we're going to bend the hips. I know what I'm talking about. And we'll sit down a little deeper, just a fraction. Challenges ourselves, but actually we get a little lower to the ground, makes things more comfortable, believe it or not. And take the arms out wide first, gain some stability. Load into the right leg. And allow yourself to slowly take the left foot up, cross it over, and see if you can wrap that foot around. Now you might not get as far or as successful as that as you did lying on the floor. Don't let that worry you. Think about balance first. And then we're going to see if we can bring the left arm across and the right arm over the top. And we bend at the elbows. We're going to try and keep the elbows aligned to the shoulders, so away from the chest. Keep the belly drawn in. Release it out. Ooh, so stability, not so good. Grip, very high. It's worth playing around to find out what it feels like on different surfaces. Take a moment just to make sure the legs feel okay, and if your heart was pumping as fast as mine, give it a little time to rest. The legs to feel like they're strong underneath you. Chance to spread the toes out a little bit as well. And then we'll soften the knees. Draw the belly in a little bit. Sit back again, just that little bit deeper. We'll load the weight into the left leg as we take the hands out wide. Start to lift, cross the thighs over, get as close to the wrap as we can. When you feel steady, right arm, left arm over the top. Bending at the elbows. Try and keep the elbows out, square to the shoulders, away from the chest. Oops. Oh, having all sorts of problems this evening. Legs are sliding around, feet are sliding around. I think this is an autumn evening. One last breath if you're still in the pose. And then we release. Untangle the legs and let ourselves open up. And shake it all out. Just shows you can't get them every time. Bring the feet back into square, hands in towards the heart. Gonna hinge down to the floor and bring ourselves back into a down dog shape. So walking the fingers in, walking the toes out. Lifting the hips high. Shoulders open up. We'll come forwards into a plank. We want the shoulders over the wrists, and we keep the hips slightly high. We take a breath, push forward on the tiptoes. We're going to bend the elbows back in towards the ribs, come halfway down and hold. Press out through the heels. And then we'll let ourselves come down to the ground as we exhale. We're going to keep the hands more or less under the shoulders and elbows ripped into the side of the ribs. And turn the heels out a little bit as the boot laces are down. Going to inhale to low cobra. Keep the legs very firmly attached to the floor, lengthening out. Inhaling to come up. Exhaling down. I'll put the hands out wide. Gecko pose up under the fingertips. It's an exhale, draw the belly in and lift. And have them lay down. Bring the hands back down to the floor, close to the bottom of the ribs. Shoulders back, and we lift back onto all fours and sit gently back down into child's. But as I do, I'm going to scoop the block from the side of the mat, take it to the back of the mat, just behind my toes. Narrow stance, hands are going to stay towards the toes, the knees close in and the head in the ground. Take a few breaths here. Last breath. Knees the hands forwards. Lifting the head and the body. We take a little breath. Lift just enough. Take the feet out about the same distance we think the block is going to be. Roll the heels onto the corner edges. As we make contact, we just spin the feet out to the side. And then we're going to walk the fingers out, bitsy spiders, to the side. Just taking them wider and wider and wider and wider. And using the back of the arms to open out the groins. We're going to take that as wide as we can. And then up right onto the fingertips. We'll try and draw the shoulders back, draw the belly in, and send the toe bone down. So we're getting the spine as long as we can get. And hands come back. We're going to let the legs lengthen back out. So I'm just going to take the hands behind, sit down on the block. Stretch the legs out a little bit. And then I'm going to move forwards. Just going to adjust the block a little bit closer in. So the knees are going to come high. And I'm going to ease the body down. Get a nice long spine, and then I'm going to take this block and put it between my thighs. Now I'm going to try to have my heels directly underneath my knees. So if I look at the distance between the center of my knees, be it 4 inches, 6 inches, whatever it is, you probably want to sort of pinpoint the center of your heel to feel like it's the same distance apart, with your feet pointing forwards. And then turn the heels very slightly out. So it's going to feel like the knees want to travel a little more into that block. Let the hands come down by the side of the body, and then bend at the elbows so that you bring your hands to face palm in. You've got little robot arms, and the back of your triceps are firmly pressing into the ground. You're going to spend a little bit of time to draw your belly in and lower your lower back into the ground, and then tuck the tailbone away so you get a little bit of a tail lift. And then we're going to press down through the feet and allow the hips to lift up. And once you've got as high as you think you can by just pressing simply down, you're going to press the back of your arms into the floor to lift and open your chest a little more. And then you're going to press the knees forwards until you can feel your buttocks engaged. So just focus on trying to squeeze forwards. Keep the block in between the thighs, just in case that wasn't obvious. It's hard to draw the knees forwards and keep the thighs working inwards at the same time. Kind of want to stretch back out, but it's the opposite effect that we're looking for. We want the inward squeeze on the legs in a way, and hopefully that gives us a little more height through the hips towards the sky. We take one more breath, and then we start to release. So we're going to slowly bring the spine down to the floor over a few breaths. I want to indeed feel each vertebrae linking slowly back down to the floor, still moving down. The ground is a lot further away than it used to be. And then finally, we arrive. We take the block out and then just place that behind the back of the head. We wiggle the feet the remaining distance into the center line, drawing the right knee in towards the body. We'll take the hands around the back of the thigh, place the fingers lightly, and just stretch that right leg out towards the sky. I'm going to draw the hip down and press out through the heel and flex the toes. Do the same again, opposite side. And release that foot down to the floor. Now I'm going to roll gently onto my right side, use the hands to lift up. And slowly bring myself into the center of the mat. Bring the block in. Lift up. I come into deer pose. So I'm going to take the left foot under and out to the side, not quite to the hip, but getting close. I want the knee to point out to the side a little bit so the foot is further forward. You're going to lean out to the left, draw the right leg back, lay the shin down, knee to the floor, toes pointing back, drop the hip into the floor. I'm going to see if I can take the hands forwards. Allow myself to come into a forward fold with the legs staying in position. So looking to take the body down the center line. Hands are a little wider than the shoulders. So use that to offset any imbalances that I feel in the body. Try and send the tailbones back. And the head just hovers off the ground. The belly's drawn in a little bit. Lift back up. We'll do the same, mirror that to the opposite side. So legs come out. Bring the foot on the right back. Remember, it's out to the side a little bit. The knee points out to the side fraction. Roll off to the right. Left leg comes in. I hook that in. Stabilize the hips as best I can. I'm trying to drop this high hip down and lift the opposite hip up. Both knees in contact with the floor. Take a little more effort than perhaps you think if you're a little bit tight in the hips in terms of the range of motion and rotation that you've got. And then we'll bring the hands forwards. Walk ourselves out. Again, hands nice and wide. Down. Tailbone back. Down. Use the hands to walk back in again. Untangle the legs towards the front of the mat. A little shake out. I'm going to cross at the shins and take the feet wide. So I'm going to use as much of the mat widthways as I can. You can see the distance between my heel and the hip is pretty much the length of my femur. Now sit up tall, make sure I'm on the front edge of the sitting bones, take the hands forwards, draw the belly in, hinge from the hips and lower myself gently down, just making sure the legs feel happy, knees and ankles, and flex the feet a little. Use the hands to lift back up. Now, first leg goes out, second leg goes out, first leg comes in, second leg comes across. We have successfully taken the legs the opposite way around. Again, we try and have this shin to run parallel to the front of the mat. We have a little wiggle through the sitting bones, make sure we're on the edge, let ourselves lean forwards, hinge from the hips. Ease our way down. Careful not to drop the head. We want to lengthen the body out, feel the tailbone back. Maybe you get lower. Maybe your elbows are on the floor like me. Maybe you're sitting higher. Maybe it's not even on both sides. Maybe one hip is a little bit more restricted in terms of the muscular tension that you've got at the moment, or just the sheer mobility of the hip joint. And then we're ready to lift. Untangle the legs. And then that favorite part of the Friday evening. Take the block, the knees, the hands, and slide down. We wriggle, let the legs slide out towards the corner edges of the mat, and we take the hands out about a ruler's length from the body. Wriggle the shoulders, the neck, the hips, the fingers and toes, and anything else we can find to wriggle. And then we just relax in over an exhale. Let everything yield to the floor. Just let the jaw be soft, and maybe let the tongue drift away from the roof of the mouth. We'll begin to stretch those fingers and toes. Breathe a little deeper. Allow the wrists and the ankles to begin to move to reconnect the body and breath. We'll let ourselves stretch out, whatever feels good, whatever feels needed, whatever feels productive and safe. Slide the heels along the floor to bring the knees a little closer to the body. And I'm going to let the legs gently come in and take the easiest of hugs. And you can bring the hands around the thighs if you want, or the shins rolled up. But I find this method of just taking the hands around the back of the thighs and letting the elbows move out to the side, get a nice open chest. You can take the knees a little wider. You can have a nice little rock onto the spine. That feels pretty good. And then we release. Get the knees in towards the body. We roll gently over to the right side. We take a breath in on the floor. And use the exhale to press the roll back up. And then we come into sitting. We sit tall, legs crossed, whatever comfortable position you can find. Bring the hands in towards the heart. We take a deeper breath in as we close the eyes. And on the slow exhalation, letting the chin drop. Drawing the belly to the spine, we simply bow to the floor to seal the practice. On the inhale, the breath lifts the spine. The head follows, the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed our session this evening. See you on the mat again soon.